And let me give you a brief idea of what's about to happen. Basically, we have fascinating papers, which we have amazing presenters for. They will come here and they will present their papers to you, after which we will have a very brief question and answer round, depending on how much time we have. And let me not waste any more time and let me just begin. So our first presenter is an assistant professor at the Department of English at Jagannath University. And Madam Shireen Ataur Khan will be presenting her paper titled Through the Lens of Bollywood, Demonizing Afghan Warlords. So without further ado, I welcome Shireen Ataur Khan, and I will just share my screen to accompany her words. And give me a second for me to do that.
Let me know when I can start, and I have like 8 minutes or 10 minutes. Earlier meaning earlier than 8 minutes?
Oh, no, not earlier than 8 minutes.
Right.
8 to 10 minutes. 8 to 10 minutes is
okay.
Fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. All right, so thank you so much for this Afghan colloquium, and this is entirely fascinating to see how we have come all together here and critically are dissecting the entire idea of what has happened and the phenomena of the Kabul fall. And I would not rather use the term fall anymore, because yesterday there was this huge discussion, and Niyazaman ma'am was telling us about the ideas and theories behind it. So without further ado, I will be going right into my topic, which is through the lens of Bollywood demonizing Afghan emperors and warlords. There has been a little edit here on the topic. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. So I was very intrigued about the entire session of this second colloquium room, and the topics are very much related. So I was really hoping and looking forward to listen to the first presenter, but unfortunately he is still not here. So I'm going to be the first one to open up the table for the discussion and setting up ideas and bringing in new ideas from other papers as well, because all the papers and the titles seem very intriguing and super fascinating and interesting. So my topic will mainly discuss on the historical cinema that Bollywood has made so far. And the thing about history, it's tricky. It's very tricky. It's always formulated with at least two narratives. One narrative from the victors, and the other narrative from, of course, the vanquished. So when Bollywood makes a movie, or when Hollywood makes a movie, all the time what they do is they are very much, intrigued in the idea and situated in the idea of their position, their positionality. There is hardly any movie from the vanquished part of, perspective where we see the narrative from the other part, from the narrative from the defeated part, where they were defeated and why they were defeated and what happened and how it happened, and so on and so forth. So historical cinemas always bring out unresolved issues and emotions, and sometimes they bring out national emotions as well. So my topic will deal with, as I already have said, it will deal with three Bollywood movies, and those three Bollywood movies deal with the battle between India, when India was undivided, of course, and Afghanistan and Afghan emperors, and sometimes Afghan warlords, and all these battle or this this issues and the historical events are presented. When it is presented through the lens of Bollywood, I will try to show how it gets distorted, sometimes how it gets exaggerated, and sometimes how it brings in other elements of politics throughout the representation of the warlords, of the emperors, and of the the quote unquote bravehearts, the Indian bravehearts, and so on. So next slide, please, Mahesh. my area of discussion, as I have said before, three cinemas that are Padmavat, and that is released in 2018, and Panipat and Ksari, both of them were released in 2019. And if we look at, I will get that part later on. So what I will be doing is that first I will be showing you the common representations that are the very common elements that are present in all these three cinemas, along with other cinemas as well. But since this is a colloquium that we are situated in a particular area of study, which is Afghan history and Afghan battles and the relationship with Afghanistan, with other South Asian countries, I will be only dealing with the representations of these three cinemas. And then I will be I'll try to talk about how this representations have set forth the idea of creating the other, quote unquote, the other. And as we all know, the famous, the theorization of the other and us and the other, us and them and us and the other. So all these things will be there. And then I will be talking a bit about the politics of other and how this politics of other has, initiated a way or sometimes, provoke the audience to fanaticism, and then later on it results into jingoistic nationalism. Can we have the next slide, please? So this is Sanjay Dutt, as you can probably already have guessed. So the first cinema I will be talking about is where he is portrayed as Ahmed Shah Abdali, and this is the movie in Panipat. And Panipat, in the movie Panipat, we see that the Peshwa Sadasiv Rao is a very brave heart, and he fought with all his heart and with all his life against this Afghan emperor who's an invader. But my part, why I'm showing this particular photograph is that, but firstly, I need to tell that my laptop has taken the update this morning, and I was supposed to show you some video clips, and there are so many video clips, but all my laptop sound is gone. And what I have to do is take the screenshot of this video shots, and now I will only be able to show you the snapshots of the screen. So this is where the first portrayal that we get of Ahmed Shah Abdali is this, the black smudge face where he just has crushed his brother with his crown, and the blood is coming from the crushed skull, and he is being portrayed as a violent image, as a graphic image, and that's everything what it represents here. And in the next slide, can we have the next slide, please? He wears the crown with the blood on his face, just to reinforce the idea that he is ruthless and he doesn't care. He doesn't even, wipe up the blood. He doesn't do that. And the same thing happens in the portrayal of Alauddin Khilji in the movie Padmavat, and the same thing happens with the warlords in the movie Ksari. So if I look at, can we have the next slide, please? So here is another. Here is Alauddin Khilji as portrayed as ruthless as he can be in the movie Padmavat. So the portrayal and the makeup and the stare and everything, the face, it takes a lot, and the distortion and the demonization. The demonization is happening continuously in the screen time whenever the Afghan emperors or the warlords are present in the movie. And then comes the next part, and very intriguing part, where they are taking food. They're portrayed taking food, not as a civilized people, but some barbarians taking food. Can we have the next slide, please? Here, if you look at the screen, you will see that on the right side there is this the grilling is happening, and he is eating with his hands. where there is this common idea that the uncooked people eat with their hand, and they don't care to have tiny pieces, but they gobble up the entire thing. And the next slide, please. So this entire scene was very interesting, and I had this video clip, but I'm so sorry that I cannot play it because of my stupid laptop. That here we see that Alauddin Khilji is having a banquet full of a table full of food, and he is eating just like a barbarian. He's eating with his hand, he is eating mindlessly, and he is gobbling up things and taking things up, and he's just eating mindlessly. So there is a sense of barbarism, there is a sense of uncouthness in their portrayal, even when they're taking food. So all these things, the small things, and it leads to the entire representation that these people are not us. Us meaning Indian people or the Hindustani people. These people are the other. They are different, and they are violent, they're aggressive, they're mindless, they're uncouth, they're barbaric, they're everything that we are not. So here, and the atrocities portrayed in the battleground, and the cowardliness. They are also being portrayed as cowards. It's important to note that. Why? Because they are often portrayed stabbing from the backwards, whereas we know in the politics of war, or in the ethics of war, if you hit someone, or if you stab someone from the backwards, that's not seen as heroic. That is seen as cowardly. And all these battlegrounds, we have seen that where it's Sadasivra, where it is Peshwa or the Rajput King Ratan Singh, everyone was stabbed from backside in their back first, and they were being hurt, and there was no war ethics maintained, which means that they are not only violent, not only aggressive, but they are also cowards, and they have won the war through their cowardly manners and their violence, of course. Whereas these are the people they are showing in Padmavat, Rajput Ratan Singh has time and again said that they don't stab people from backwards. They have this war ethic. Whereas whereas Alauddin Khilji, openly states that they don't have any war ethics. So they are everything that we are not. And this is the lens that the filmmakers are putting the audience, that they are the other, and they are encouraged to see from the neo-Orientalist view the other, even from the South Asian perspective. And then the loot and everything. And can we show the next slide? Can we have the next slide, please? This is a very violent and graphic snapshot from the movie Ksari. And in Ksari, here this soldier, he was being stabbed from thousands of Afghan people. He was one man against hundreds and thousands of people who were surrounded him. And if you just look at the photos, you can see the numerous swords that has severed this body. The mindless violence, the atrocity, the cowardliness. Once again, this portrays the cowardliness, because he was only one man and he fought hundreds of Afghans. So this is my last snapshot of the presentation. I will also want to mention, the commentary of the movie Ksari, that on the very onset of the movie, the commentary, the voiceover says, Afghan Camino. Afghan Camino means Afghan bastard. Pardon my language, but it's there in the movie, so I have to say it. So they're being portrayed on the very onset, and it was being said on the first minute of the movie. So this Afghani bastards or Afghan caminos, they are very strikingly getting, their own place, which is not in India. And the spectatorship or the audience right at that moment decides or get biased or get an idea about the stereotype that has been played here. So one can argue that, yes, of course, Afghanis were invaders. They tried to invade the area and everything. So why don't we should put them in their right places? But then again, we also need to remember that when there is a battle, the other side of the battle did not just stand there. They also fought, but their fighting, their killing were not showed in these movies or in the cinemas. And that is where, the politics of the othering begins. And even when they were eating, when Ratan Singh was eating with Queen Padmavat, when, Saragarhi, in the Saragarhi cells, everyone was eating, they were having some sort of decency. But when we see the Afghans were eating, they're being uncouth. They're eating with both of their hands, and they don't care about the table etiquette or manner or anything. So having said that, I will now be talking about the timeline of this movie. How much time do I have?
Actually, we're just over 14 minutes.
Oh my God. Okay, so I'll be stopping just one minute, or give me just 2 minutes, okay? So my point is that if you look at the contemporary politics of India, in 2014, BJP takes the power. And all these, saccharine version of cinema, and when I say saccharine, I literally mean the Khan and the Hindutva or the Hinduism and the linguistic nationalism comes in the front line. And this is the time when every now and then with these cinemas, the Hindutvad or the Hinduism is resurfacing again and again. And they're telling that these are the people who were barbaric and violent, and these are the people who were valiant, who were our heroes, and who fought for the country with their lives. So the timeline is also very important, because in Narendra Modi's time, PM Narendra Modi's time, these are the movies that are getting out and getting all the public sentiment. So this is also a part of contemporary Indian politics. And thank you so much for letting me over time. Thank you so much. So I would very much like to have, your ideas or your suggestions for my paper. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss. That was very interesting, I must say. It's quite fascinating. Have I stopped sharing my screen? Just making sure.
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you. All right, so that was a great start to the session. Thank you so much. Up next, we are going to venture into music because, and I must apologize in advance for my atrocious Urdu pronunciation, but the title of our next paper is Banduk Dikha Dikha Ke Kya Pyar Karegi. Should we celebrate the problematic forceful submission fetish in the song Afghan Jalebi? And this paper will be presented by Nusrat Jahan from Noakhali Science and Technology University. Please welcome Ms. Jahan.
Hello, everyone. May I start?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. So please, let's have a look at 3 pictures, which will furthermore make our arguments more stronger. A 15-year-old girl, 3 shots, and the entering and exiting of the bullet. The horrifying experience of Malala Yousafzai has portrayed the actual jeopardy gun violence can occur. The second image has been taken from the music video of the popular Bollywood song Afghan Jalebi from Phantom movie. They're celebrating something by firing. And by something, it will be clear from the next image. And the third picture shows one of the influential actresses of Bollywood, Katrina Kaif, walking as a diva among the blazing guns, as if it is nothing, posing as the Afghan beauty. These three scenarios or pictures are contradictory, as two of them celebrate the gun violence, and on the other hand, the first picture portrays the real danger of promoting or sugarcoating gun violence. Greetings to everyone. This is Nusrat Jahan, and I am an independent researcher and alumna of Department of English, Novelty Science and Technology University. The topic of today's presentation is Banduk Dikha Dikha Ke Kya Pyar Karegi? Should we celebrate the problematic forceful submission fetish in the song Afghan Jalebi? Applying visual and textual analysis, this presentation aims to study the representation and long-lasting impact of forceful submission fetish in the lyrics and music video of the popular Bollywood song Afghan Jalebi from Phantom movie. Moving on to our next slide, let's consider gun or banduk as a weapon to provoke power or fear. While male-dominated societies often justify small arms possession through the alleged need to protect vulnerable women, women actually face greater danger of violence when their families and communities are armed, says Barbara Frey, UN Special Rapporteur. At the end of a barrel of a patriarchal gun, both figuratively and literally, in vast areas of Afghanistan, where regional and local commanders and their armed groups still wield arbitrary and unchecked power, women and girls face a high risk of rape and sexual violence from the members of these armed factions and former combatants. Many men carry guns as part of their perceived and constructed role as protectors of women. While this notion alone is problematic that women need protection, the gun also is used as a weapon to provoke power, fear, and threat. According to Every Town for Gun Safety's report, in USA, every month an average of 57 women are shot and killed by an intimate partner. Nearly 1 million women alive today have reported being shot by intimate partners, and 4.5 million women have reported being threatened with a gun by an intimate partner. Now, this is figure showing the average percentage of primary school students who are female in Afghanistan, according to the UNESCO Institute for Statistics. When the Taliban governed Afghanistan from 1996 to 2001, it barred women and girls from taking most jobs or going to school, and practically made them prisoners in their own homes. After the US invasion, some schools reopened, giving young women and girls a chance at education and careers that many before them didn't have. But even before American troops touched Afghan soil, some women had already risked their lives by secretly pursuing an education and teaching themselves. And this is all about education, one of the most basic rights of a human being. Let's turn to the next issue. What is an item song? An item song in Bollywood or the Indian film industry is a slang which refers to a song performed by a sizzling lady with a catchy tune and derogatory hook phrases. The female is just a seductress or a vamp whose main role is to submit to the man's desire and completely give herself up. 90% of these item songs are written for the females to perform on, and these songs are majorly written by the male composers who stereotype the females. So now we come to the next point. By the early 20th century, fetish took on the meaning quite distinct from its antecedents. A sexualized desire for an object, such as a shoe, or for a body part that is not directly related to the reproductive act, such as an yellow. Submission fetish is a set of behaviors, customs, and rituals involving the submission fantasy of one person to another in an erotic episode or lifestyle. Media representation in this case is crucial as it structures, enlightens, and obliquely comments human actions, and promoting forceful submission fetish in popular media blocks the importance of healthy consent of women and details threat in her lifestyle. Now let's consider the title of the song Afghan Jalebi. Here a woman is compared with jalebi, one kind of sweet food. The item song declares that it is permissible and even natural to compare women's bodies as commodity. There remain the motive of consumption in the lyrics of several of the songs, with women are compared with edible products. The lyrics of the songs propose an inferior level for women in society, and as the actor dances to the song, she accepts and certifies her position as a commodity. Women are either projected to be good or bad in the item songs. There is no grayscale in woman's character in this song. She has been labeled as a lovely damsel, a glowing beauty, at the same time as an unfaithful lover. She is compared as God's wonder and also destruction. The duality of morally ambiguous characters makes them not only more interesting, but more human and more real. And on the other hand, one-dimensional portrayal of women hinders their character growth. Let's move to the next part. The questionable lyrics and visual depiction of Afghan Jalebi situate women in general and women of Afghanistan as the epitome of submissive and sexual objects. The song normalizes male gaze, forces consent at gunpoint, and commodifies women, complicating Afghan women's previously oppressed situation. The narrator wants to receive the affection of Afghan beauty, and he will even force to love by threatening gun violence by saying, "Banduk dikha dikha ke kya pyar karegi," which can be translated as, "Will you just love me at gunpoint?" He also gives ultimatum to marry her by trapping her finger in a ring, further worsening the situation. Moving on to our next slide, religion advocates for women's rights. Culture often does not. Atrocities are committed against women in the name of God every single day. This does not necessarily mean that religion itself causes violence, but that people often use religion as justification for violent actions. The narrator here is threatening to complain to God by saying that, "Khaja ji tere paas teri chugli karunga," which can be translated as, if the said woman does not give her consent, he will complain to the God. He is using religion as a tool to objectify and restrict women's consent and agency. The presentation has nearly come to its ending. Let's have a look at it in short. In the song Afghan Jalebi, there are catchy tune, attractive metaphors, and it also forces consent at gunpoint and commodifies women. At the same time, it complicates Afghan women's previously oppressed situation and uses religion as a tool to oppress women. And furthermore, there are forceful submission fetish. Independence belongs to all of us, and that is why we celebrate it. Do you think, however, that our nation from the outset needs only men to serve it? Women should also take their part as women did in the early years of our nation and Islam. From their examples, we must learn that we must all contribute toward the development of our nation, and that this cannot be done without being equipped with knowledge. So we should all attempt to acquire as much knowledge as possible. Despite the saying of the progressive Afghan queen Suraya Tarji in 1926 and rich history of Afghanistan and the trending Me Too era, people celebrate these kinds of regressive songs and their debatable contents for the worsening and encouraging the critical status quo of women. The fact that the song is sung by children and adults, men, women, boys, and girls across class and caste divisions, whether in a party or during a procession or even an annual day celebration, overcomplicates the situation. The promoting of such forceful submission fetish and normalizing it with such acceptance is highly problematic. The title Afghan Jalebi further makes it vulnerable for Afghan women. The ease with which people cheer such offensive ideas is unacceptable, and it is high time to stop with this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking us into a deeper analysis of a very problematic and relevant issue. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we move on to our next presenter, and he has joined us all the way from our neighboring country, India. Mohammad Reyas currently teaches at Alia University, India, and today he will be presenting his paper titled Mapping the Misrepresentations of Afghans in Bollywood or Indian Films. Please, sir, kindly take the floor.
Thank you so much. First of all, I apologize. I got confused with Indian time and Dhaka time. So my apology. I'm starting my presentation. So I'll share my PPT. All right. So once again, my apology, and I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to present. I hope I am audible enough.
Yes, sir. Perfect.
So just a second. So, as the host said, the topic of my presentation is mapping the misrepresentation of Afghans in Bollywood, that is Indian films. Uh, this I'm sure must have been repeated many times, that India and Afghanistan, and in fact whole of South Asia, have shared geography, shared history. And what is interesting is till 15th August of this year, at least, India and Afghanistan had very cordial relations with the previous government, the Republican government. India and Afghan, in fact, India was the first country with which the then government had signed the strategic partnership, and Indians in general and India in general enjoyed goodwill among Afghans, common Afghans, I mean, not just the government. And Bollywood films and Indian TV serials were a staple diet, a staple source of entertainment for common Afghans as well. Now, that we all know, of course, but in this paper, I propose to explore how common Indians perceive Afghans. And I do this by studying Indian / Bollywood films. And for this, this paper in particular, I choose 4 films from different era. One is Kabuliwala, which came in 1961, Khudagawa, which came in 1992, Kabul Express, which came in 2006, and Ksari, which came in 2019. So you can see that 2 films are post 90 and 2 films are pre 90 period. Now, just in brief, to be fair about Indian films, media and films in general all across the world stereotype not just Muslims, but like say the way women are portrayed, the way blacks are portrayed, the way people from the LGBT community are portrayed in films, are like this othering and this stereotyping is a game which media and films in particular play everywhere. And Muslims in particular, for example, are stereotyped as, like, especially post 9/11 situation, we see Arabs and Muslims are, of course, they were always otherized, but now they became terrorists or at least terror suspects, and their women as subjugated, suppressed. I am sure it has been deliberated many times in different panels. And the same is true for Indian films too. Just one point here, that in India, this started post 90, in fact. That is when Babri Masjid was demolished and the riot followed, and there was this blast in Mumbai. And since then, this kind of terror films began. But post 2001, the frequency and the number of films increased. So in Bollywood films, I'm sure people in Bangladesh are also familiar. You'll see Muslim localities shown as, and not just Bollywood films, even Bangla films or any other language films, any Indian film, you'll see that Muslim localities are portrayed in certain ways. I'm sure some of you must have seen Zulfikar by Srijit. And that film, again, that's a Bangla film, but how Muslims are portrayed in that film, I have written another paper on that as well. And similarly, I'm sure you must have heard the film Makbul, which came in 2004, which is an adaptation of Shakespeare's Macbeth. Now, Macbeth adaptation could have been anyone, but he had to be Makbul, a Muslim guy, right? Similarly, in Apharan, if you have seen this Musalman politician, he says that whatever he is doing, that is all the wrong things he's doing in a way in the name of God. Okay, so he says this in the film. Now, coming back to Afghans, Afghans have always been there in some, like say, as I said, India and Afghan have shared history and geography. There are a sizable Pashtun population, or Pathan as we say in India as well. So in Bombay in particular, in fact, so this is the one scene from the famous film Zanjeer, and this Sher Khan of Zanjeer in a way was the epitome of the way Afghan are stereotyped. This is like his hair will be dyed with henna, not just hair but even mustache and beard, and he will speak in a particular accented Urdu. Okay, and but they will be loyal also, like they will be very they may have they rarely played the main character, but they would be like loyal friend, someone you can trust, someone who is brave, someone who is ready to die for his promises. I'm sure all of you must have seen the Kabuliwala. The first case study I do is Kabuliwala, as you know, is an adaptation of, and this has been adapted several times in Bangla films, in Hindi films. But for this study, I took the Hindi film which came in 1961, and Kabuliwala, the film, is the archetype Afghan who speaks heavy, accentuated Urdu, is emotionally reactive, but also loyal and vulnerable. The Kabuliwala in the film is not just different in appearance, but in his emotions, in his actions, in his vulnerabilities from the narrator and his city. That is made clear in every scene of the film, from the time when Minnie sees him for the first time and hides her. Those of you who have seen the film would know who Minnie is. Hides herself, thinking that a seasoned kidnapper of small children. Okay, so that's how in pity and in pathos, the film ends up otherizing Kabuliwala, the Afghan guy, in almost every scene. Okay. Uh, I just for this presentation, I'm not going into all the details. So after Kabuliwala, I'll next go to the film Khuda Gawah. So Khuda Gawah, you know, came in 1992. This was again a blockbuster, but I see Khuda Gawah as an escapist film. Okay. Badshah Khan and Pasha, the two Pathan in the film, are extreme stereotypical representation of Afghans and Pashtuns. One is loving, loyal, honest promises, and is willing to go any distance for friendship, while the other is his nemesis, conniving, indulges in all sorts of wrongdoing, is dishonest, is treacherous, and in cheat. These are the two stereotypical image we have of Afghans. But the female characters in the film are very independent, to the point of fighting bushkashi or deciding for themselves. Khuda Gawah was also an escapist drama, as I said, and it talks of tribal rivalry, treachery, love, and longing, but finds no mention of ongoing. Like this film, as I said, came in 1992, but it is not situated in 1992. It is in 90s. It is situated like is in sometime in historical period. And Sanam Bewafa I would put in the same category of the film, and has similar characters as I mentioned about Khuda Gawah. Now, the most stupid film I have seen on Afghan is Kabul Express, I must say, although let me put it here that this film was made by Kabir Khan, who himself claims to be a Pathan. This film came in 2006. It was the film revolves in the post 2001 situation, when Americans have just invaded Afghanistan and Taliban has retreated. Now the film name is Kabul Express, but it hardly shows Kabul. It shows that they somewhere landed in somewhere in north. Okay, it's not clear where they landed. It's clear that they came to the suburb of Kabul, which is clear because there is, in the background, we see Darul Aman Palace, the ruins of the palace, okay, which has now been renovated, by the way. And now this Darul Aman Palace, we see in the ruins, but there is hardly any mention of it, as if the filmmakers didn't even know that the importance of the Darul Aman Palace. And similarly, you hardly see any women character, the Afghan women character in the film. There are some you'll see in the background, maybe begging, but not in the not actually women talking, although there are so many times references to women. This Kabul Express seems to even get geography wrong. So the characters are in Kabul. They plan to go to Pakistan. So from Kabul, if you have to go to Pakistan, you have to travel east. You don't have to travel west. And there is this mention of Hazarajat area, which is the region dominated by Hazaras, which is in the west, which is not in west of the Kabul, not in the west of not the east of Afghanistan. So similarly, from geography to history to even characters in the film, Kabul Express gets almost everything wrong. Now, the last film I'm going to talk about is Ksari, which came in 2019. this film, those of you who have seen or have heard about, is stars Akshay Kumar, and he has, by the way, become this new mascot of making nationalist jingoistic films. Now the film is loosely based, for those of you who don't know, on a battle which occurred in 1897, where Afghans, primarily comprising Afridi and Orakzai tribes, seized this fort and captured it. Okay, there were only 21 soldiers of the Sikh regiment of the British army who were all killed. Now, before the film begins, there is this disclaimer in the film, and this is just the excerpt of the disclaimer, and I'm reading it out here. Though the film is inspired by true events relating to the Battle of Saraigari, it is pure work of fiction. Takes creative liberty with all events, not created this film to incite any disorder or lawlessness. And there is this mention of disorder and lawlessness because, you know, in India, almost every period film creates controversy. Neither they do it. Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, and this is such a shame because it's so interesting, but I do have to introduce the next presenter. So I'm very sorry for that because of a strict time constraints. If you could just give a quick wrap up of 30 seconds, if that's okay.
Okay. In 30 seconds, I'll wrap up. So I'm not talking about the film Ksari, but in short, as I mentioned, the urban places, the Kabul often is missing in films, and Bollywood has presented like pre-90 and post-90, we see the difference in characters, but from Kabuliwala to Ksari, the single thread running through all of them is how Indian characters present, whether it was Mini's father in Kabuliwala or Afghan businessman or any other Afghans, characters are sort of subhuman. That Indian characters are superior, they are human, they are loving, caring, have high values, are cultured, are urban, in compared to Afghans who are savage, who are brute, who are oppressive. And only the last point I would like to add is I sometimes wonder why this kind of negative portrayal of Afghans, although India and Afghan shared very good relations, and the only plausible answer I find is the kind of anti-Muslim feeling which is very prevalent these days in the country, and the Islamophobia probably is one possible reason. Thank you for giving me time.
Thank you so much, sir. Oh my God, this is so fascinating. I am so lucky to be in the presence of such intelligent minds. And to bring this incredible session to a perfect end, we have one final paper. So our final paper is titled Afghanistan in Bollywood Films, and it will be presented by Marjiku Haq. Oh, sorry for the mispronunciation, I'll pronounce it again. Marjiku ul Haq from the University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh. I humbly request him to take the floor.
Okay, so yes, hello, my name is Marjugul Haq. Good afternoon to you all. I would like to first thank ULAB for organizing this colloquium, and I'm honored to be selected as the presenters. And so the topic I've picked is Afghanistan in Bollywood films. And I have studied 8 films to show how Bollywood films orientalize Afghani people. And this is a sort of timeline that I've drawn up. I'm going to essentially say that there are 2 films which came before 9/11, which show Orientalist tendencies. There are 2 films post 9/11 where we see more overt Orientalist tendency, and then in a following decade, we see 3 historical dramas, which Shirin ma'am, I believe, have already sort of talked about. And yeah, so some of these films have already been talked about, so I'll be very quick about it. So I just want to talk about the first 2 films, Dharmatma and Kudagawa, where we see that where we see an orientalization of Afghani people. For example, the heroine is being assaulted by this Afghani man, and we see the hero being assaulted by the Afghani man. And if you look at the film Khuda Gawa also, there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of overt violence. Even the hero and the heroine are seen to be dragging the villain on horseback, and then what happens is that they throw him against a rock and kills him in that way. So then we have the post 9/11 films, for example, Escape from Taliban, where we see very overt depictions. For example, on the right we see domestic violence, this Taliban guy marrying a woman at gunpoint, forced marriage. And then we see the main character who is sleeping next to his husband while he is having his bedroom time with his second wife. So there are these ideas about Muslims and Afghani people, and notice that this film is not only demonizing the Taliban, it's also demonizing the normal Afghani populace. This Escape from Taliban. So then we have Kabul Express, which is also a very, I would say pretty overt depiction of Afghanistan as a very barbaric place. There's this interesting part where we see this Taliban. So what happens is that the journalist and the Taliban are having a conversation about cricket, and the Taliban says Shahid Afridi is the best cricketer. And the journalist disagrees with him. He says that it's Kapil Dev, the Indian cricketer. But the Taliban has him on gunpoint, so he cannot really. He forces him to stop saying that. But now that the journalist gets the gun, he sort of forces the Taliban to say no. To say it's Kapil Dev. It's not Shahid Afridi. So there's that nationalism also going on there. Then we have the historical dramas, which I believe has already been sort of discussed, but I will quickly go through them. In Padmavat, we see Alauddin Khilji. So as a very barbaric kind of sultan, he mistreats women. This princess is being made to stand in a pool of water while holding torches while being changed to this pool of water. Then we see the Afghan sultan who has the king's head on a staff, and he's doing this in front of his wife, who is the daughter of the king. So, and just to quickly go through these things, again in Ksari we see this Afghan mullah is dragging this Afghan woman. And the thing is, this woman has been forced into marriage with another Afghan man, but she doesn't really acknowledge the marriage, and she's being sort of she's being forced into a very difficult position where she has to be killed. But this in Ksari, for example, the Hawladar Kishar Singh, he defends this woman, and then if you see the ending, fights very valiantly against these Afghans. So Afghans are being demonized, even in Panipat, where you see the Afghan Sultan sort of killing one of his advisors just because he gave an advice that he did not like, and then smashing one of his assassinators with the crown over and over again. That's the kind of barbarism we see Afghans being imputed with. I would like to sort of end with the final film Torbas, where we move to the present day from that historical drama setting. In Torbas, it's a story about child suicide bombers. The Taliban sort of kidnap children and turn them into riflemen and suicide bombers, but the main character, also Muslim from India, he comes to Afghanistan and sort of convinces some of these kids to go away from that path through cricket. And because it's cricket, you can already tell there's some nationalism involved. There's also a lot of gun violence and bombing in the last film, compared to the other films that have been produced so far. So I've also studied some differences between Bollywood and Hollywood films to sort of distinguish how Orientalism is slightly different in Hollywood films. So in Bollywood films, for example, we've seen this new genre called historical drama. We find where in Hollywood films we find the films are usually set in the present day, although there are some historical films. Then Bollywood films usually bank on savior complex. Hollywood films usually come up with expressions like war on terror, and it's usually a military intervention. The US Army goes to Afghanistan to to fight the Taliban, or and even sometimes local villagers. And one big difference is that Hollywood films has relatively less gun violence and bomb explosions compared to the Hollywood films. The Hollywood films is very overt with gun violence and these things. And I would like to sort of drop the timeline again to explain a few things. Pre 9/11, we see that the two films are not fully Orientalizing Afghanistan. They have this Orientalist tendency. I say this because in Kudagawa, for example, the hero is actually Afghan. And then we have post 9/11 films where we can see the Orientalism taking a form where Indians or India has become both a victim and a savior of Afghanistan. And in 2018 and 2019, the three historical dramas sort of present Afghanis as a foil to Indian nationalism. They do this by sort of pressing the identity, by suggesting that Sikh identity, Rajput identity, and Maratha identity, these are the three identities that are presented as part of the Indian national heritage or national culture, national identity. But Afghanis are outsiders or barbarians. And finally, we see Torbas again set in the present day. It's sort of bringing us back to the present day and showing us that Afghanistan is a place of barbarism, and that Indians are the saviors of Afghani people, even though they are sort of, in a way, victims. And yes, with that, I would like to end this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marjuk Hawk, for bringing such a great conclusion to today's session. Now, we will have a very brief, and I must stress on the word brief, we will have a very brief question and answer round where we will take maximum 1 or 2 questions because of the shortage of time. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type it up in the chat box. Oh, no need to apologize. I apologize for mispronouncing your name. That happens. Actually, while we wait for people to type up their questions, I actually have a question of my own, if you don't mind. First of all, it was very fascinating to hear about Afghan representations in Indian films, but would you happen to know if the representation of Afghanis is different in Indian literature? I personally don't know much about that, and I was just a bit curious to know. And this is not directed to anyone in specific. Anyone who would jump in and wants to share something can do so.
I mean, you mean the Afghan representation in literature, in Bangla literature, or because I don't know much about Indian literature except for Jahida Hinas and some other essays. But about what was your question towards, like, Bangla literature, or was it?
Yes, I would also love to know that about Bangla literature too.
I mean, in Bangla literature, as Manzoor Islam sir was saying this morning, that Afghanistan is always represented through, in a diverse landscape and as a diverse as it can go. And in Tagore's work, we have the epitome of the Afghan representation over there through the Kabuliwala's character. And in some other literatures, I cannot remember the name, but there was this mention of the Kabuliwalas being violent and aggressive. But in Tagore's portrayal, we have seen this, the Kabuliwala as a generous as well as he also has some violent. But we get to see him in a portrayal of father. And in Jahida Hina, as Kumpum is doing well, work, we get to see, the contemporary words like Marzus was saying that in Torbas, what we get to see, the political association and the present, but not as a character. As a character, we get to see, Shabnam, Mustafa Ali Shabnam. She, the beauty and the quality and the bravery of her, it's there. So if you want to read about Afghanistan, and there is another book called Poribortone Aporibortone by Mustafa Ali. So these three books, you can, yes, Nusrat Jahan has already mentioned, Shabnam Deshe Bidesh and Poribortone Aporibortone. The third book is, it gives you a detailed historical identity of Afghanistan from a perspective of Sayyid Mustafa Ali. So yeah.
Thank you so much for
I think
answering that
Professor
question.
Riaz was going to say something.
Yes.
No, I was also going to mention about Sayyid Mustafa Ali book, actually, especially Desh Videsh, which talks about the Afghanistan in 1920 when he was there in Kabul to teach in a school. So I was also mentioning that about that. So thank you.
Thank you. I have a lot of reading to do. Thanks for that.
I think there is a question by Sangeeta. Right? If we do have time.
Yes, of course. Just looking for it. Sorry.
I get the question. If you want, I can just.
Oh yes.
So she's asking, like, she has seen some of these films, and they're like, why are Afghans negatively portrayed always? So I was just referring to this in Indian films. If you see, not just Afghans but Muslims in general are stereotyped in a very negative way and often vilified and otherized. So that can be one. See, also our history is very, like, it's a shared history which is often very complex. Like say many rulers who ruled India came from that part of the world, and so somehow there is this kind of a very complex nature of how we see this, and also the way India is imagined at the moment, where it's more about Hindu nationalism, and there these Muslim leaders or rulers of the past somehow became the anti-hero, if not villain, and so they are portrayed in a very negative way. By the way, this was not always so. I in my paper I talk about one film, Palay Khan, which came which has Jackie Shroff. It came sometime, I think, in 1960s, and that film is about a Baluch rebel who rebelled against the British, and is portrayed in a very of course there might be some elements of exoticization and some element of Orientalism, but overall that character is like he is the hero in the film and is portrayed very positively. So this is more a recent phenomena, I would say, like post 90s phenomena, and not always been like this.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much to our speakers. It was really, really, really wonderful to have gotten to learn so much from each of you. And that was the end of our session. However, we do have a very stimulating panel discussion today after our lunch break. And I would invite you all to please join us again. And the panel discussion's title is Afghanistan Today, Heritage, Art, and Women. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you soon.